Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon already. And welcome to this ACTMI closing session. And I hope you've all had a very productive day and a very productive week here at ACTMI. I know I have, with more than 100 sessions in all of these crazy rooms all over this beautiful venue. I hope you've managed to find what you needed and get what you needed out of this conference. And so for those of you who don't know who I am yet and looked at the agenda for today and wondered why a journalist was going to be speaking at a scientist convention, I'll explain a little bit. I'm the ITM's journalist in residence this year. Every year they have one who comes from the developing world to get a better sense of some of the work European scientists are doing here and to get a better understanding of all the work that goes into what you do so we can write better stories in the future. So I've been here since September. And I've been meeting with scientists, having conversations with them, and meeting in their labs, and having the most amazing discussions about their work and what drives them. And really what it's been is that I've had a chance to do what most science journalists never get a chance to do. It's a rare luxury, which is spend time with scientists without the pressures of deadlines. So we've had very informal discussions about what their passions are, why they do the work they do, or why you do the work you do, and what you want to see happen in the future. What you want to see happen from funders, what you want to see happen in the industry, and you've all been very vocal about what you want to see happening in the media when it comes to covering your work, and I've been listening. They've also been very expressive about what you want to see in the media beyond the press releases, beyond the outbreaks. You want to see a better understanding of your work, and I understand that too. It's been illuminating as well to hear all the complaints about the media. So thank you. We're not thick-skinned people. We can take it. You can tell us what you don't like about the media, and we'll work to improve it. The researchers have also told me, gotten a chance to ask me questions about the way the media works, and I've also been happy to explain the media production process and why their work maybe isn't portrayed in the way they want it portrayed and how they can make that better in the future. So really, there's been lessons learned on both sides, from the researchers I've spoken to and from me personally. And one question in particular they've also asked is, when they are quoted wrong, who do they blame and who do they call to complain? And all I can say is, it's not me. I can't take responsibility for all the media that misquote you, but I'm happy to point you in the right direction if you meet me later. From my side, I've also learned about the commitment of the researchers and about the painstaking precision of your work. And a story from just yesterday that I learned about how painstaking that precision is that I learned when you're covering African sleeping sickness and you are filming in a tsetse fly breeding colony, and where the researcher really needs to pay attention to what they're doing and not be distracted, it's not a good idea to ask lots of questions so that the tsetse flies can wake up and escape. Because when that happens, it's a crisis. For me personally, because I grew up in Africa, so tsetse flies on the loose are terrifying. And for the researcher, who will now spend the next several weeks tracking down every single marauding tsetse fly and probably get bitten by them. So I apologize for that. Lesson learned. Also filming in labs here at the ITM, I've learned that when researchers are filming things that are very technical, not to distract them because they will make mistakes, and asking what's that every 10 minutes is illuminating for me because journalists are curious, but it's annoying for everyone in the lab. So also, lesson learned. Thank you very much. Here at the conference in particular, you've seen me also be very annoying, popping up in the back of your sessions with my cameraman and our big camera, annoying you over lunch or coffee while you're eating a big muffin and putting my camera in your face and saying, hey, what do you think about the conference? So I apologize for that as well, occupational hazard. But thank you to those of you who did answer my questions. And to those of you who've been trying to dodge me all week, I have your cards, I'll find you. You can't dodge me forever. So joking aside though, this week has been a real eye-opener for me personally. The general media tend to overlook conferences like this, and I mean the mass media, because they think they're too technical. And there's this misperception that our mass audiences won't understand them. But it's just that I found, it's a misperception. Because what I've learned is that your work is so incredibly vitally important for audiences to know about. And it's anything but technical, especially when I get a chance to talk to you about what drives you. And you've seen some of those talks this morning with the passionate researchers and the way they can talk about their work. It's something I feel should be covered more in the media, and we'd love to help you do that. What I've really learned as well is that this conference in particular has been a real crucible for debates on public health systems in the developing world, on maternal health, on mental health, on neglected diseases and viral hepatitis, funding and aid. So many topics have gotten us all so riled up and involved, and I think it's great for you as a science community, but it's also great for everyone to see how vital and how charismatic this community is and how people should keep up with the debates. And what's really surprised me too is the balance between the North and the Southern voices. It's a really strong showing of young researchers. In my experience covering all of these science forums, it's really hard to find diverse voices, but I haven't found that problem here, and that's a real feather in your cap because this is a very well-represented conference. There's been so many young researchers here from the developing world, and they've had a very strong voice. And for those of you who say young researchers are sometimes disruptive, they have a lot of opinions, they always want to express them, that's a good thing because they bring fresh opinions to the debates as well. And they're challenging and energetic. And I think they've embodied this concept of switching the poles that ITM has promoted so well over the years. But I don't want to just tell you about all the voices of ACTMI that I've gotten to speak about. I've also compiled a little video of all of the voices of ACTMI, which I thought you might enjoy watching. So, roll video.
So it's clearly a very important place to be because there's a lot of opportunity for exchange and increasingly in the world today collaboration seems to be a bigger thing than competition, and especially for things like health. So all of us young researchers, we are really looking forward to opportunities to collaborate, to network as well as exchange with various young researchers and senior researchers from around the world. So ECTMI is a great place to be in that sense.
The most interesting part for me was the opening session when we had Professor Leke. I thought it was amazing what she talked about. I thought she was real. She wasn't sugarcoating things, and she talked about, what the reality is on the ground.
It gives a chance to engage people who are already involved in the field. It gives chance to form collaborations between either South and South or North and South. I've had interactions from other people who are in the South where we have agreed to form sort of small consortiums where we can collaborate and work on that. And I think for me, this is the exciting thing, collaborations, and you also get ideas of certain things which you actually realize, I can go back and do something like this, maybe at low cost or in partnership with other people.
I'm happy to be part of the global health policy debates because the sort of voices that come from the global south are always important to feedback and to inform the discussions that happen on the global scale.
In that the session about teaching and learning, I learned from other continents that they also have this kind of program to train community workers, as well as we have that in Thailand too. So we share some experiences about the program.
Makes me to have the opportunity to share and to learn from my colleagues from all over the world, and in that way we will be able to make a difference easier in order to improve the health for our future generations.
This is an opportunity to share some of my thoughts as a researcher coming from the developing world. I particularly would like to urge the scientists over here to invest more in rethinking about the health system, from a global health perspectives.
It's very important. We need to be smarter. I think the challenges are moving very fast, and we need to be smarter as researchers to make those complex challenges simple to grasp, simple to understand, simple to communicate, and it will require a lot of processing to reach that effort. And
this morning I went to a session where it was all about enabling equity, and I think we're moving in the right direction. And coming from a country where we have so many challenges, it augurs well for us.
I think that for us the important part is to be involved in all the sessions and also have to raise questions and to encourage the discussion about the different topics. I think that we are having a space in these global spaces, and that's really interesting, and I'm really happy because of that.
I think the ECTMIH conference is a great venue and opportunity for me and other researchers to meet and share our common interests and also share our findings. And also I think that it's a place that can inspire us to continue the work that we are doing in the field, despite all the challenges that we are facing when conducting research.
I definitely think it's useful. I think the importance of global discussions are that they are indeed global. And so that means leaving space for voices from places we don't often hear. I think this conference in particular has done well. It's evolved over time. And so we see that there is more space for the voices of the Global South. What I would love to see in the future is that we expand that space. So we move beyond researchers and scientists speaking to one another and really teaching other sectors, whether it's business, whether it's government, even communities. How can we broaden this discussion so it really involves many more of us? And so that as researchers and scientists, we can actually make our knowledge practicable and make our knowledge actually work for change.
Still me. Thank you to all of those researchers who participated and who added their voice to the debates. It was wonderful chatting to all of you. And I think what came out of those little talks was that the debates and conversations were really important to you guys. And it really resonated with you. And I'd encourage you to take those conversations forward and these connections forward when you leave ECTMIH, because those will be what really helps us all make a difference going forward from a media perspective. I've also been talking to you, many of you throughout the week, about other things you've enjoyed about the conference. Many of you have mentioned the food, and that's good, because the food has been great. Many of you have mentioned that it's been great to talk to people outside of your core discipline that you don't really get to interact with every day, and that has been a great part of this conference too. Some of you have mentioned that you've been talking to some of your colleagues over email for years and you've met for the first time here, and that's also wonderful. You've told me that you also have an interest in communicating more with media, and you've talked to the other journalists in residence and others who've had the same problems with the media as you have, and you've come up with solutions and ways to go forward. And that's also great, because conversation is the thing I want to leave you guys with the most. In that when you build these connections with each other and with civil society and with other partners, please don't forget building relationships with the media as well. We need to be part of this discussion that you're having about the challenges in global health and how you want to solve them. It's not helpful to ignore the media and hope that when you have a press release or when it comes to results release day that you get some good coverage, because the media are not going to understand what you're doing unless you explain it to them. So you need to learn to make us your partner the whole way through the journey. And a great way forward would be to engage with media like a relationship. Make contact, build trust, keep that conversation going, and give the media a space to ask stupid questions. In my time at the ITM, I've asked so many stupid questions, but I've come away with a greater understanding of the complexities of what you do. And that's essential for the media, because if they feel that if they ask a stupid question, scientists are going to be hostile to them, they won't ask, and that's a danger to everybody. And so when we understand your work better, we can write about it with a lot more justice. Like any relationship, this is going to require a lot of work on both sides, and in some cases, some counseling, perhaps. We're both going to have to fight this inherent distrust that we have of each other and realize that we really are all on the same side. We're all trying to tell good stories. I promise journalists are not trying to misrepresent your work. We're not trying to misquote you. We're not trying to make it seem like you're not doing your job the way you should. It's probably just a misunderstanding, and working on that relationship and cultivating these partnerships going forward is a good way to eliminate that. And if you can help us do a better job, that's going to be even better in the future. When I'm not a journalist, I'm also helping train scientists on how to talk to media. And just a few days ago, I was talking to one of the scientists from back home in South Africa about the media training he's had, because his organization has now made it compulsory for the scientists to have media training for interviews. And he showed me a little booklet which has a checklist on how to prepare for interviews. It was, come prepared with the questions you want to answer, stay on message, don't deviate, and all of these things I'm sure some of you have come across at least once, how to deal with the media. And I think really with my training, what I do is tell people that's the wrong approach. It makes the media sound like we're out to get you and you need to defend yourself, and that's really not the case. Books like that and training like that is a good starting point, but remember, it's just to help media and journalists understand each other. The key focus of this should be that conversation and the partnerships and the relationships you build, because it's less likely that the media is going to misunderstand your work if they've had time to follow you over a long period of time and really get as passionate about your work as you are yourselves. So if I have to leave you with one message today, it would be to keep this discussion going with each other and with us, the media, and to keep challenging each other and to get the right to help us all get the right message across as often as we can. And if you're comfortable with it, go make friends with a journalist. You don't have to go to a news station, but journalists often reach out to you for quotes or information about your work. Try and cultivate those relationships, because those journalists are showing an interest and a curiosity about what you do. And those are the right people to reach out to and start to build these relationships going forward. And I assure you, if you try and do this in the future, you'll be a lot happier and more positive about your relationships with the media and the coverage that you get from us. So I want to thank you all for listening to me address you today, and I want to thank ECTMI for having me and ITM for having me this whole time. It's been wonderful. Thank you.